What direction is the Council taking regarding the common agricultural policy? Are there any sensitive subjects?
The Danish point of view is that it should have had much more reform in it, as it seems to have. But we do hope that we will get through with some changes. And when you ask about sensitive issues, I would say that things like capping and modulation, that is examples on issues where the member states do not agree. So we are still discussing how far should we go and what kind of instruments should we use at all.
Organic farming is an interesting alternative to answer to environmental problems. So why, in your opinion, does organic farming still account for such a small percentage of farming?
I think one of the main problems for the organic products is the cost. There are higher prices and it's more expensive for the farmer himself to produce organic products. But what we have seen is a trend going really up, that the consumers do want more and more organic products, and our responsibility is to make it possible to have this kind of production and to support the farmers who wants to change from the conventional farming to the organic farming.
Denmark is the country with the highest per capita consumption of organic products. Why? Are Danish more intelligent, wealthier, or just better informed?
I'm not sure that there's a simple explanation, but I think it has to do with that in Denmark we discuss very much nature, environment. We want to take initiatives to protect our environment, and also animal welfare plays a certain role in the discussion in Denmark. And then of course also we are in a situation where people can afford to buy those products.
Mad cow disease, poison, mozzarella, contaminated wine. Where are the European strict controls? And how do you regain consumer confidence?
It's right to answer that question because we have seen examples on things going on which we wouldn't believe could happen. And I think that shows us how necessary it is that we continue at European level to make regulations and to have a secure control with what's going on. So yes, there are things which happen, and it shows us that we have to stick together and learn from one another on how can we best protect the consumers.
GMOs. Is a common EU position possible?
I believe that we should have a more positive attitude towards GMO because it also gives the opportunity to have products which are better when we look at nature and environment, and there might be a development which can reduce, for instance, the use of pesticides and so on. But the actual problem which we face when we talk about GMO is a lack of feed in Europe and very high expenses for the farmers.
The alarming rise in wheat, rice, corn prices has sparked tension in developing countries. The situation isn't much better in Europe. What measure can the EU take to stop this?
First of all, take away the restrictions which we have had on production, like the milk quotas and the set-aside, and take those fields into use again. And the other is, in fact, the discussion about the GMOs and whether we, through more use, could do some more on the food production and the possibility of feeding people, of having food enough for people all over the world.
Are agriculture subsidies still necessary?
I think we should make a long-term strategy where we reduce the subsidies and instead use the money for taking care of environment and nature and climate problems. I do believe that we have new problems arising, and we have to seek to handle them. And I think that's a better way of using the money, so giving priorities to other issues than the typical subsidies.
The farmer's worst enemy is bureaucracy. Asking for financial aid has become an headache for most of farmers. How can you simplify this process?
I believe the best thing we could do would be to remove some of the subsidies, because an obvious follow-up on having a lot of subsidies is that it has to be controlled. The best way of simplifying would also be to have a real reform of the common agricultural policy and change it from giving subsidies to paying the farmer for taking care of nature.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.